All right, welcome back to the Conquest Corner. On this particular episode, we are continuing going through all the updates and changes for Sorcerer Kings. I decided to break it down to individual pieces. That way, one, if you only want to hear one part of it, you have that. Like I said, I'm gonna on the podcatcher put them all together, so you have all that at once if you like. But otherwise, just because that way I'm not sitting here for 3 hours at once trying to record it. I don't think that goes well for a video personally. So remember, this will be in video form. It'll also be on, like I said, podcatcher. I might wait on that until I put them all together, but it'll be there as well. All right, so in this particular one, we are going to be going through the Earth Elemental stuff. So we've went through so far the other three courts. We're going to do the Court of Earth. Then the last one was going to be Mortals slash the Maharabati Sorcerer Saints. Essentially, I know the class is elemental, but they don't have a particular court that they're listed as per se, so I'm just doing them separate. Mostly didn't think about it at the time. Keep in mind if you want to pick up this or anything else for the game. I know we have some more at the time of watching this originally when filming. They just showed off the painted pictures for the Dai Yokai and the Genyo no Yokai. So if you want to pick up that or anything else for this great game, we have a discount code in the show notes below. It's Train Kicker, saves you 10%, helps out the show as well. And without much further ado, let's get into the last court that we need to discuss. First thing I want to do in this, I did the same thing when we talked about water, is just the fact that Earth, as well as water, has you place markers. So Earth makes you put an Earth marker. Surprise, surprise. They tell you what water does. We're going to see what Earth does in particular in a moment, but otherwise you only have one of these markers, of one of each type, I should say. So you have one Earth marker, and if they're two Sorcerer King forces, then you each have your own form of that particular marker. A few other little bits to kind of discuss to make sure you remember for this redesign, because it is a complete and utter redesign, that the way rituals work are a bit different now. So for rituals, you have whatever court your character is, they have access to all of those spells and all of those rituals. To actually stack up a ritual, end of supremacy phase, boom, choose a ritual that you can do. You put tokens if someone casts a spell of that particular court, or if a unit that's elemental of that particular court activates. Put tokens down. End of round, hey, you got enough, or any point you got enough tokens, all right, take that off. Next round, it goes in. There is ways to get more than one ritual card essentially in a row, but otherwise you're looking at about a potential of a card at a time. Although, depending on what round it is, the first card you create or start that particular round gets that many tokens on it, up to 5. So that means on round 2, you get 2 tokens, 3, 3. From 5 through 10, you're getting 5 tokens. It's a nice scaling to be able to give you the option to get rituals going in later rounds where maybe you've lost some units, you lost a character. Although you can't do a ritual if you don't have a character of the right type, but maybe you started with 3, you're down to 1 character, lost a few units, you still can get those rituals going. All right, so what we're going to do for this, we are going to start with the spells, we'll go to rituals, then we'll go to specific Earth units, and I'll talk about if ghouls are great in this or not. Now, unlike some of the other ones, there's nothing else to look at. We don't have to look at comparison purposes because Earth didn't exist before. Well, technically, I guess the Mahut, well, they made it Earth, although it wasn't that before, and we'll talk about that as well. All right, we're going to take a look at Sunder, the land. All of these spells are 12s. They're all attunement 3, except for one of them, and most of them are not scaling. So this is 12 attunement 3. It requires 3 successes to successfully cast. Target objective zone counts as a piece of hindering terrain in addition to it being an objective zone until the end of the round. I just scrolled a moment ago to check to see, does being an earth elemental unit mean that you don't pay attention to something like that? It wasn't listed there, so in general, no. What earth elemental will end up doing is if you're within 3 inches of essentially an earth element marker, then you get to reroll 6s on saves. I believe it was 6s on saves. Let me just make sure I have that correct. I don't want to, especially with some of this, it's rather new, so I want to make sure. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, gain untouchable. Untouchable means reroll 6s on saves. Okay, so that means when we take a look at this particular one here, you do need 3. This is obviously useful if your opponent is trying to get onto the objective. So you're there, they want to charge you, especially if, say, they get a bunch of impact or anything like that, and they're not Nords who get to ignore it, but a bunch of impact, you can stop all of that. Good, potentially, the fact that you can be hindered as well. Yeah, the fact that you can be hindered as well could be a little bit of a meh thing, but like I said, under the right circumstances, good, but I think very situational. Stabilize the pattern, so 12 inches, 2 and 3. Till the end of the round, friendly elemental regiments. So it doesn't care what type, just elemental. Which, if you are not effectively what Roger Kerr, Maharabati initiates, or Denor disciples, or base things like that, you do fit it. And yeah, they are discussed regiments, so those are the ones we're talking about. So until the end of the round, friendly elemental regiments within 8 inches of this character do not suffer the effects of aura, death, or decay. So depending on the list that you're going against or your opponent, that can actually be very strong. So again, very situational. There are many cases where it does you no good in terms of the aura death part, although decay we will talk about. So that has some uses, mostly in Earth, at least as far as I noticed, only really in Earth. But the removal of aura death, depending on your enemy, could be very good. Remember, to have Earth Elemental or Court of Earth spells, at least one of your characters is Court of Earth. Which means, let's face it, if you're going to be taking that, then you're also going to be taking some of these Earth Elementals, so you can at least benefit some from that. But again, a little up in the air. Target Court of Earth Elemental gains Trample +2. So more Trample. I believe, I'll scroll real fast. Again, we want to talk about the units in their entirety later. But I believe they have... Okay, so no Trample there, no Trample there. The Mahut is Trample, so they're putting the +2 because some of them have... One has Trample. I didn't see the others, but maybe someone else does. But hey, extra Trample. Trample is very nice to have. It is a 3 scaling, just so people are aware. But Trample's always nice. I have Trample 2 on the Kami for Yoroni, and it is actually a pretty feel good because you've done all these attacks. We've all had cases where we attack someone, and after resolve and everything like that, you're just a little bit short. You know, they survive with a couple wounds. I've had it before where they survive with a wound. Trample's that little extra bit of just finish them off. So that one, again, a little situational, but much, much more universal. Because as long as the unit is going to go fight someone, Trample's great to have on them. Although it does have to be Earth, but again, if you're taking Earth, you want to take Earth units. Reinforce the pattern, 12 inches. This is a 3 scaling, just like the last one was. Target friendly Court of Earth regiment. So Court of Earth just means they have to come from essentially, Warlord makes it those courts and stuff like that. So until the end of the round, the regiment cannot perform a charge or reform action that does not suffer hits from impact and trample. Okay, so if you're standing on an objective, you can't reform either, although depending on you're facing, it's okay. But if you're standing on an objective and someone's about to hit you, say, with a unit of Thunder Riders, especially if they're looking at a move charge or something like that, you don't take any impact. Someone's hitting you, even they have trample. There's some other stuff that has trample. If they hit you with any of this stuff, you don't take any of it. If someone has Yoroni. Pretty much every Yoroni regiment, except one, has impact. Except Kami have trample. Here's a way to ignore all that. If we're looking at you're running a heavy horse list of 100 kingdoms, many of them, not every single, all of them, okay, all of them impact. Many of them, impact is what they do. There's a few that's not like their primary target, but for some of them that absolutely is. You just get to ignore it. Yes, you don't charge, you don't reform, but there's nothing that doesn't say you can't move. So if you have the time to go, you could, if you're already on the objective, reposition yourself to keep them off of it, or put this on someone in the back, wait till later, or the potential early, they can go walk on. I do find sometimes, especially right for the moment, when they've changed the who goes first mechanic, that If I'm looking at an impact cav unit, they're often one of my last activations, if I can help it. Unless I'm in a position where like you're gonna hit me otherwise. And that makes, oh well, if I push up to the objective, if I push to the spot I want, is cav has really good position on me. Well, here's the way to stop that. Again, a bit situational, but I can see a lot more uses for this than honestly the first, maybe even the second. Again, it does have to be Court of Earth rather than Elemental, but as long as you're taking Earth stuff. Hurl the Earth, 12 inches on a 3. Enemy takes 4 hits with armor piercing 1. We saw a few other spots with this. Blood to Water did some hits. I believe that one did what, 6 AP 1? No, Blood to Water did 1 each. That was a ritual. My apologies. But anything that gets some damage, especially at armor piercing 1, is useful. One thing that the spells really, in general, have lacked and still lack for this faction is any AP. If someone has good saves, your spells don't necessarily do that much. Here's a nice way that one, okay, I need 2 successes, and then you're taking 4 hits. I'm not rolling per hit, which is kind of nice. That flat getting to 4 is good because on average, on 3s, I'm probably not beating that anyway unless I roll really well. So getting 4, getting the AP 1, feeling really good. Reincarnate the Self. Target regiment heals 3. Notice it does not give any other classifications. Water did. Water had to be mortal units. Court of Earth now can heal anything. So, other than realistically hurl, oh excuse me, so late in the day, and it's about the third or fourth of the third that I've recorded of this in terms of what you've seen. Many of these are essentially in terms of a supplement, although that's pretty common for Sorcerer Kings. A lot of the spells aren't meant to be the main damage dealer or the main effect to your opponent. They usually help you a little bit more. But you have a heal, you have a direct damage spell, all these things sitting at 12. You can get yourself some trample if at once, or you can guarantee that someone doesn't get all those impacts. To me, that's probably the best of this list. Not that everything impacts, but the things that do hurt badly. And if something really wants to impact, then it doesn't necessarily care about move charging. So take its movement, double it, add a d6. That's realistically their range, which is probably out of, or often can be out of the ranges that you want. So to me, that's the juiciest spell here, I think. I always like heals. You know, a base heal of 3 is always nice. Turning it to hindering could be good as well. So overall, I like the spells. I think, I don't know, do I like them? They have a different feel than some of the others. As I'm kind of scrolling through and looking a little bit of the different things that they do. I still think Court of Fire, if you're running tons of fire, is good, but if not, then it gets a little bit hit and miss. Otherwise, this might be air I might put at the bottom for what I like currently. This might be back and forth between second or third, between earth and water. I probably like the earth ones a little bit more because I can see their uses. Again, a little bit of when to use them, but none of what they do is necessarily bad. Or, okay, none of it is bad. All of it is good. But it does a reasonable amount of power, and there's a few spells that I think can really be game changers, specifically removing impact and trample from someone. All right, let's take a look at those rituals. So, we have no rituals to compare to because they didn't exist before for these guys. Keep in mind, though, when you pull the ritual card, this is currently in the base rule, unless they change it for the future. But when you pull a ritual, that if the next unit matches the type, they get to go immediately. They don't have to wait. So they said if it's the same court, they can activate immediately. That is a base ritual rule. So let's take a look at Court of Earth rituals. Gifts of the Earth on a 7. All these are actually on 7s. Most of them throughout all of this are on 7s except for water. Nominate a point on the battlefield, and you put an Earth marker. We already know there's some interactions, but for those, While within 3 inches of an Earth marker, friendly Court of Earth regiments have Regen 2. And it remains there until the end of the battle. You can only ever have one, and if you place a new one, get rid of the old one kind of thing. So you're giving your court, so anyone who comes from Earth gets Regen 2, which is nice. Regen 2, it is a somewhat small number. It might, for most things, it's not going to get you a stand back, but it could heal up stands if you're injured. Do watch, though. Keep in mind you can't heal if you are broken. So nice, takes a little bit to get to it, but given that regen, it also means you don't mind putting in your backfield a little bit or a little bit behind your line to make sure that you're close enough to be able to get these sort of effects. Earthquake. Any regiments within target piece of zonal terrain, and while within 3 inches of an earth marker, suffer 6 hits and may not heal until the end of the round. They don't cost morale. You can then move it 6 inches. So you're going to target a piece of terrain and within 3 inches of the marker. 6 hits is a good amount of hits. We saw the the water one do 6 hits at AP1. So this one does not do that. You get the 6-inch move and they cannot heal. So you got to, they underwater, the similar effect makes them reroll cis morales of 1. Here you're going to stop all their healing. The 6 hits and moving this, because you could move it to a spot that will help you, because you get this regen, and there's some other bonuses for being around these tokens, of course. But 6 hits is really nice. You are currently looking at being within that 3, essentially enemies within 3, or like I said, you get to pick a piece of zonal terrain. For this, actually, if they word it, the objective zone counts as a piece of hindering terrain. So does that mean it is zonal terrain? Just looked at the rules. You're giving it a zonal effect, although it's not technically zonal terrain. So by pure reading, I would say no. I would be wanting to see if they FAQ or say more in the future, because I think that could really give Sunder the Land something very useful for it to do. You make the objective they're on zonal, and then you end up being able to put 6 damage onto them. Or 6 hits, I should say. So that may be true currently. By reading, I would say no, but I don't know their intention. And the hope is that they explain this and tell us one way or the other to be sure. All right, so depending on the army you're facing, if they have good regen and stuff like that, some of them from healing can be really big. You're looking at, say, a unit of trolls or something. Okay, last one is Kiss the Earth. Target friendly non-monster regiment that's currently composed of two or less stands. It is immediately destroyed. Its stands are not removed from the battlefield, and instead they become obscuring, traversable, hindering pieces of zonal terrain. Should there already be a piece of zonal terrain on the battlefield created by this ritual, then remove it before doing it. They count as being destroyed by your opponent. So you can create, they have to have 2 or less stands. You're probably looking at having a stand, but then you can make it obscuring. They can walk over it. It is hindering pieces of zonal terrain, but you can only have 1. Can't do a monster, so you're talking about individual stands. How do I feel about that? That one's tough. Now, we've all been in positions where you know your unit is going to go down. You know, your opponent is standing there. They have more stands. They have their swings ready to go. You know you're not going to be able to make it out. Turning you into a piece of terrain, the obscuring could help if there's some shots going through. Although if you're only 2 stands, or at most 2 stands, you may not be fully blocking them enough. Hindering can be good. They're losing, in most cases, losing a variety of rules when they charge you based off of that hindering. Though, timing-wise, if you're sitting there in front of them, and you do that, then the opponent could move through and then charge. They might not want to charge from there. Although again, if you're only one stand, it might not be enough. Although off of movement, if let's say they're engaged this one, you pop out the stand right in front of them. If you're not teed up exactly, they're probably going to have to turn one way or the other. So likely that they will be affected by the hindering. I don't know. Put in the if you're watching this on YouTube, put in the notes below or put in the comments if you have if you've come up with a really cool use of this. I'm not sure what it is yet. I can so when I look at some of the other rituals, when we take a look at say like water, okay, put a marker down. I expand that marker and then I hit you with a violent geyser. I understand my plan of action with those rituals. When I look at air, okay, I can see some sort of some bits of timing pieces. Hey, people take some damage in later rounds is really good. Early rounds, I'm going to mix up my deck and pick what I need and all of that. I understand that. When we look at Court of Fire, okay, hey, I give my units relentless blows, or maybe it gets a little better. I can give opponents, I'm going to inflame them with my attacks and then hit them. I understand the timing, the windows, and the choices. I don't feel I understand the choices well here. The first one is easy. Putting down this gives you regen to, and and your units care about having these markers. Like I said, you get some bonuses for having it there. You get untouchable. Okay, I get that. I understand how to use that and the good ways to do it. Earthquake, easy enough to understand. Again, it's only a 3-inch bubble. I can't expand it, but I can stop you from healing. 6 hits, pretty nice. Kiss of the Earth, to me, it is really, really up there of whether or not I would find uses for it. What I find tough is keep in mind, unlike what we did before, unlike in Sorcerer Kings, where you could have multiple going at once, what I would do, so one of the old rituals lets you destroy an objective marker. You had to be, I think, within 8 inches, but boom, just get rid of objective marker. So I would usually start that one a little early, and I would just let it simmer. And I would wait till, oh, I know next round I'm going to be close to that objective. So next round, I will make sure this goes off, and there's ways to have stacked tokens on it. For these, I only have one going. If I have Maharaj as my leader, I have a little bit easier to get it going, and once it's gone, I can put another one in. But in general, I have one of them going. I need to know ahead of time, about a round or so ahead, actually a full round ahead, because I start this card at the top of the round. Unless, because the water where you can do it in the middle has to be another water ritual. So I'd have to know one full round ahead that I want to blow up my unit. And that will require that my opponent not destroy them and leave them to 1 to 2 stands. And that I want to take them off the board. Now, timing wise, you can have that regiment activate and then do this afterwards. That's absolutely fine. But what I will say is, this is a sort of thing where I think many times Kiss of the Earth won't do you very much, but then we'll all talk about that story where you used this one time and it stopped the monster that was about to charge you. They lost their impacts, all this crazy story of how it was utterly amazing. But I think a lot of times you're going to see some big misplays with this one because you're going to miss time when you need it, or you're going to put it on and you put it a little too low, which means, oh, that regiment, was already gone, or I probably want the regiment to go first, unless there's like nothing left of them. I don't know. I think so far for rituals, the Earth one kind of impresses me the least. Again, not that they're bad, and if you're running Earth, Gifts of the Earth help, and Earthquake is always nice, but I think comparatively, I'm not as huge on it. Going to units very quickly, just talking about ghouls, because ghouls, whatever the warlord is, that's their type. Making ghouls Earth, giving them that regen. Actually, when you have 4 wounds, the regen's really nice. Ghouls go down really easy. I tend to either run 3 packs or like 6. 3 packs are meant to be a missile just to go hit someone and cause annoyance. 6 are meant to actually get in there and mix it up. But a little bit of that, a little bit of unyielding if I'm close to that marker. Some good stuff. Kind of like some of them and some of the other bits more, but I don't mind any of that. And spell wise, actually they are elemental, so you could give them trample. The reinforce doesn't do them as much, and the heals is nice, but you could actually give them trample because they are elemental. At least they should be. Yeah, so giving them trample, that's not bad because ghouls already do pretty decent with the number of attacks they have. So take a little bit of a bigger squad, get a bunch of attacks in, trample someone at the end. I like it. All right, let's get to the units themselves. The specific units that only come in one particular way. So we have, I think, 3 total. Yep. 2 brutes and a monster. Though the monster we've already seen, but we'll talk about it anyway. So we got the Eternal Eidolons first. 200 points, 60 points to stand. Move 6, volley 1, clash 3. They're 5 attacks on 6 wounds, so hardy. 3/3/1 for resolve defense and evade. They course are elemental conduits. They're impact 3. Vanguard 3, so they can get up there pretty good. They're terrifying, which is nice. And they have dread base, so you're not getting your inspire. So clash 3 and they don't get to inspire is very nice. The opponent doesn't. So at the start of the regiment's activation, if a Court of Earth ritual command card was activated during the previous draw command step, they get to heal 4 wounds. 4 wounds is over half, so that means even if you're down a wound, that you could actually still get a stand back, because you could heal one back and then get them back otherwise. And you're looking at the Court of Earth, so you could have done one of those Earth rituals, then you have them go immediately. That's a heal of 4, and you also have that rejuvenation of 2. So you can actually heal back quite a bit. Sorry, this is technically rejuvenation. The other one, you can call it whatever, but essentially you do get to heal back those 2. I said Earth Elemental rule is that if you're within 3 inches, you get untouchable. So very survivable, sitting on 6 wounds. You get to heal the 4. Sorry, if you're watching, just scrolling to be able to talk a little better. Regen 2. You have that as your rule. So between the 2, going correctly, you can get a regiment back. Or, sorry, not regiment back, a stand back, even if you were down a couple wounds. Spell-wise, do they help so much? I mean, again, that reinforce, losing impact and trample is very big. If their goal is just to go stand somewhere, they're already engaged, but someone's lining up for a side shot onto them. Hey, they lose their bonuses. You have a way to heal them another spot. You can get them some trample, which is nice. Didn't have it before, but give them a little bit of that trample. And stopping death or decay is good. Or of death or decay. I thought some of these guys had decay, but maybe not. At least this guy doesn't. That's okay. They're a pretty good defensive piece. Terrifying is nice. The Vanguard helps them out. Dread really helps. So good defense. That's really what they are. For what they do attack-wise, especially at 200 points, I'm not all that impressed. But again, sitting at 6 wounds, the defense 3 isn't huge with that evade 1, but dread means that most people are not hitting you that well, unless they have just like absolute beefed up stats. I went the other day against some Dragon Slayers, and I forgot that those guys are like base clash 4. And I was brutes, so Fiend Hunter, essentially flurry. But most things care about that. I'm okay with them for the moment. I'm not super impressed currently. Again, the heal is nice, but some of it could be wasted if you were 2 wounds down, then or 3, it doesn't do you any good. heals back the rest of that stand, but you're not getting another stand back if you're down 1. Keep in mind also, you can't heal if you're broken. So if I'm a 3-pack and I lose 2 to your attack in, that is only 12 wounds. It definitely is possible. It's not super likely depending on what's hitting me, but it's possible. Well, now my ability doesn't go off. So decent, but I'm not super impressed yet. Oppressors, 200.60 a stand, so same as that points. They're also move 6. They are volley 1. They are still clash 3. 5 attacks, 6 wounds, so same as X stats. They're impact 3. They have that same amount of Vanguard. They're still terrifying 1 dread, but these ones have unstoppable. So that is the gain. So that's the other thing, actually, I didn't mention there. The other unit doesn't have unstoppable, so your move 6, that means if you're looking for more than about a 9-inch charge, you're not likely to make it. Even then, I always get concerned. But unstoppable really helps out. So far I like it a little bit more. If a Court of Earth Ritual command card was activated on the previous draw command step, you get +2 to your attacks. That's Heralds of the Destroyer. So that puts you to 7 attacks. Okay. Of the 2, at least, this is a unit that wants to take that shot right afterwards. And they get that untouchable if they're within 3 inches of the Earth Elemental. That's it for their rules. So you do an Earth Ritual that, say, puts down a token. You'll get +2 to your attacks. You're now 7 attack space, leader sitting at 8. You can go ahead and charge into someone. You'll get your impacts. You'll get to hit them. You're likely to get your charge in, or much more likely because you're unstoppable. And whatever they have left that swings back, you are dread. They don't get bonuses. Of the 2, so you are less survivable to an extent. You don't get the heal. But again, there's a chance the heal doesn't work or doesn't do you that much. If you're only down 1 or 2 wounds, you're not even down a stand. I don't know if 1 or 2 wounds, I'd rather have the more attacks. So yes, the other ones are more survivable, but Earth does have some other ways to heal. So I'm a little less concerned about that. I think I like the Oppressors better. This fits the very classic Sorcerer King of, I just have a lot of swings. I'm going to hit you with a ton of dice, and you're going to roll enough saves to fail. We do specifically have some things with good cleave and all of that, but they're in very specialized spots. They're in your Steelborns. They're in your Varna. So of the 2, I like the Oppressors more off of base rules because, a good offense, a good defense is a good offense kind of idea. I know it might be backwards from the classic phrase, but that's absolutely fine. For both of them, though, I'm not super impressed personally. That's just me. I like the Oppressors better. Maybe because the moment I'm kind of thinking about them as a separate or an individual unit. I'm not thinking about the mix and match yet. And maybe that's where it really helps out. And then the Mahut. The Mahut now is Earth. Kind of a shame. That also means Favor to Hormus. If you read Favor Hormus, the character has to be Earth as well to go on it. The Mahut in general has lost a bit because the Mahut doesn't have the same sort of healing and items and all of that in the past. So 1, when your rider used to go on the Mahut, you would give it flank. That's no longer a thing. So that means I'm only getting 1 guaranteed heavy in the round that comes in. I used to love the Mahut with one of my Rakshasas. Could both come in turn 3 because flank and the other one's my auto. All right, so that's a little bit worse. You don't get your base healing off of just casting spells onto yourself. You no longer have the item. I forget which item it was, Nevatin or whichever one. But when you would do a ritual, or essentially start a ritual or do your ritual action, you healed 3. So there was lots of ways to make this guy very strong, very durable. They lost some of those. Let's talk about what he got, though, instead. Barrage 10 at 20 inches. Same sort of thing. Stats are the same. It's 20 health. It's Resolve 3, Defense 3, Evade 2. It might have been Evade 1 before, but it's at least Evade 2 now. Move 6. I know it was 6 before. Brutal Impact 2, Cleave 1. He's got Hardened 1. He does 5 impact with Linebreaker, Oblivious, Trample 5, and Dread. So the Dread is the new thing. Earthall has Dread. He did not have Dread before. Okay, so he's gained survivability in some sense because that Dread means your opponent will hit you less. So maybe you don't heal, but they just get less hits on you. Gets the following action. Gilded Statue. Within 10 inches of him, as a out of combat action, you can put an Earth Marker down. Keep in mind there's ways those Earth Markers. So an Earth Marker naturally will give him Untouchable. But the Earth Marker doesn't naturally give the regen. Take a look at the ritual. You place an Earth while within 3 inches of friendly. So Gifts of the Earth mention that gives them regen 2. Does that mean his does? Is that an Earth Marker trigger? Or is that a ritual only trigger? I don't know. To me, when I compare it to water, water has ritual effects and has a static effect. And then your elemental is a separate thing entirely. Whereas for this, it doesn't have a static effect really. So to me, it would make the most sense that his does the same, that's just an Earth Marker rule, but it's not actually listed that way. I want to see it listed that way or said like, no, only if you put it down that way. And if that's the case, that's bad. I don't think that's great game design otherwise. Yeah, I would say he should have that effect. If not, that's not great. And hey, he gets a free volley. And yeah, he can shoot someone in close combat, but he must shoot them. 240 is still sitting at the same points. So assuming an Earth Marker gets you your regen and he can pump out an Earth Marker, you can get him to have regen too. Dread will make him a bit more survivable. The Oblivious, which you had before, helps. The Mahut with a character on it was exceedingly survivable. A Mahut now with a character, I don't know if he's quite as good. He's a little bit easier to do, but being forced into Earth kind of hurts. Well, I said Earth does have the spell for heal 3. Let's assume you can get that regen 2. You have a good chance to be able to heal him 5 wounds in a round if you need be, and the Dread's helping out. So he's still good. I do like how Earth just hands out Dread. That is what it does. I think that's a really neat effect. Giving him Untouchable on his 3s with some rerolls will help him out. His survivability is probably close, but I think it's still not quite as much as it was before. Because there are things that Dread doesn't care about as much. If you have Fiend Hunter, you're not really so worried about Dread because you're getting to reroll it all anyway. So I don't like him quite as much as before, but I do like the way I painted my Mahut. So I'll absolutely take him. One thing I want to make clear, because I don't know if in the talking that I've done so far, if I've made this obvious or not. Your mortal units take the essentially whatever regiment they're in, or sorry, whatever warband they're in, they get that type. These ones do not. So like you can take this Earth Mahut in a Fire Maharaj unit, a warband. That's fine. But a lot of times intermixing like that doesn't really help you as much. Yes, he is elemental, but his elemental conduit's not going to help unless someone else is Court of Earth, because you need Earth rituals. If none of your characters are Court of Earth, you don't get that. A lot of the spells or rituals do call out particular types. Not all of them. They just call elemental, he's that. But many of them do call out the type. So if he's like the only Earth thing you take, that's fine, but there is a little bit of mis-synergy there. Luckily, none of his, and he can put out Earth markers, so he does have a way to get his own Earth effect. So yes, you can intermix. I am at least viewing in the beginning, or at least for the moment, that you are taking units that generally want to match. Like if you're going to take more than a single Earth unit, you're probably going to take an Earth caster. That's what I'm looking at. Although not required. That might be a separate thing where we kind of, maybe when we put all this together and talk about it overall as a discussion there of where do you feel good taking one thing that mismatches. I've done it before. I usually, in my previous list, took a lot of fire, but I would take Windborne Djinn because I liked what their effect did. Didn't matter, the rest of it didn't match. Now it's a little, but even then, you could be fire type, but do earth rituals. That, or air rituals, I should say at the time. That's not a thing anymore. So I think the Mahut, okay, when I look at these, the Mahut, you could make a very easy argument of why he is the only earth thing in your list, even if your list is pure something else. I think what he does, what he adds is enough that you can absolutely make all those arguments. I don't think the other ones do. One, you need to get earth markers for eternal oppressors. So if you don't have at least an earth character, and even if you only have one of them, I don't know if I'd want to waste the time on the ritual. If I'm running much earth, sure, but I don't like that personally. And if I'm only running one earth, if I'm not running a Mahut, do I really want to take the time to put down the marker? Probably not. I probably have better things to do. So if you're only taking one, I think you're taking the Mahut. If you're going a lot of earth, I think it's okay, but I'm not super impressed by the earth units other than maybe the Mahut. If you do want to take a favorite of Hormus, so if you do want to put a character, it could be a Maharaj or Sorcerer now, which fits better because the favorite of Hormus model is a Sorcerer, or looks like a Sorcerer to me. It matches the aesthetic a lot more than the Maharaj. So at least if you're doing that, you now have a character who's Earth. So maybe then I do put in an oppressor unit with my Mahut. So now I have two things that can benefit from it. And hey, he can throw down the marker that the oppressor cares about. I don't, for the moment, I'm not going to main. So talking about them all together quickly for a moment here. I'm happy to main fire. I'm happy to main water. Air, not as much. Earth, not really at all. For main support, Earth, the rituals don't support nearly as much, but the spells do a good amount of support. Again, though, the better support wants you to at least be Earth-based. Maybe Earth and Elemental, but at least Earth-based. So, I don't mind taking a character this way. I'm not taking multiple. If I'm doing this, I kind of want my Maharaj to be my leader, because in that way, I can still put tokens down on my units, even if for the Elemental Conduit, even if they don't match the right type. Because otherwise you have to be the right type of Elemental Conduit to put a ritual marker down. Maharaj ability, no you don't. You can just do it. So if I'm going to do that, I want him, and I want him as my warlord. In general, I think I want him as my warlord pretty much all the time anyway. Oh, Raj I know can do some stuff if he happens to be Earth. I haven't looked at it as much because I haven't cared so much. I think the other two, okay. Friendly Court of Earth Elementals would get regen too. But it's not stack, so I probably still want the Maharaj more, personally. The Raj, he's okay, but I kind of like the other one a little bit more. And for water isn't bad. When I talked about the water, I mentioned there, because water markers, the stands in there now, it's obscuring. Pretty good. A little bit more defensive tech. But I would say for the moment, the only reason I wouldn't put these guys Earth at like the bottom is by the Mahut. And maybe that's just because I painted the Mahut. The Dread is very nice. It is helpful. but there's something about it where I'm not feeling that super impressed with it. It feels like something is missing, and I don't know what. I don't have a thought, and maybe it's because there's only 3 units. Maybe we need a little bit more. Maybe because we already have one amount now. But I'm not seeing oh man, here's the cool, I'm going all in on earth ideas. For water, I see it. For fire, I absolutely see it. For air, I don't really see it either. So I think air and earth are support based. I have to test. So what I will have to say though, I do have to test it around before I feel exactly what those combinations are. For right now, again, I all fire, all water is cool. Intermixing is fine. And mostly there's a thing in characters. Because yeah, you could just put a Mahut in. I think you are not doing yourself a disservice in any way to take whatever type you have and throw a Mahut in there. I think he's a good monster. I think the Dread is nice, and he can give himself his own buff. He can get himself, assuming the tokens naturally give you regen, and you don't need the ritual to do it. Assuming that's the case, he can do you a lot of good. But otherwise, the other ones don't impress me enough to kind of throw them in unless I'm running multiple Earth stuff. So, all right, well, that'll do it for this particular one. Most have been pretty positive. This one, I'm a little bit less, but hey, maybe I just need to try it out, and maybe there's combinations I'm not thinking of. If you have something in mind, or if you've tested this out where, hey, here's the thing I'm noticing that really works, let me know. Put it in the comments on YouTube. I'm really interested to know that. I do usually give it a little bit before I go back into comments, and depending on what the comments are, if I don't feel I can say something that isn't something I've said right here, I do read them, but I don't always put a comment on that, because if I'm just going to rehash what I said, is that doing you any good? But I absolutely love to see what people say, and especially if people have ideas of things that maybe I haven't come up with or haven't thought about yet. Because for this, I don't know. I find the earth a little lacking. And maybe that's just because it's a very, or some of the pieces are a little bit more niche. What I will say though, always temper impressions one way or the other by oh man, here's how it worked really cool in this game. If it didn't repeat often or have a way to repeat reasonably, then it's a one-off, and we can all talk about our really cool one-off stories. I remember a game back, I don't even know what edition it was, let's say 5th edition 40k, maybe it was 6th, but maybe 5th, where you could still go to ground, and that gave you essentially a 6-up cover save at the time. So a 6-up save, and I had a bunch of orcs, and I went to ground with a unit of 20, and they also had a 6-up feel no pain, which meant, hey, if you miss your save, you got a 6-up afterwards. And on 20 dice, I passed like 15 of them, because I rolled 6s or something, and then a 6 next. I still remember that. I don't even remember exactly what edition it was. I could tell you the story I was in. I could tell you the armor I was facing, all that kind of stuff. We all have those cool stories. We war game. We war game for cool stories. That's really what we do this for. We do it for social interaction, for a cool thing to hang out and talk about with our friends. If you go into a wargaming store, I don't care if you even play the same game that I do, we have something in common and we have discussions we could have. You could play nothing but historicals, and I play nothing but 40k, but you know what? We can still bond over basics of painting, of playing, of different things. You kind of have instant friends to an extent. And you have cool stories. And cool stories for and against you. I can tell you some stories where things, the opponent got the right thing at the right moment, the right time, all of that. And that's still fun. But we all have that sort of thing. I want to know if someone has done something with this or thought of ways that aren't just everything falls together perfectly and I got the right dice rolls. That's the other thing. Realize your opponent is playing against you. If your way to make something work requires that everything goes your way and they do the dumbest things ever, that's not really legitimate. I'm not saying that Earth doesn't do a lot of cool things. I just don't see it personally for this moment, but I haven't tried it. I will be honest, I haven't sat down and played with the Earth stuff really. So I said in one of my other videos, you might be seeing this while I'm on vacation down in Wildwood for a long weekend. But when I get back, other than teaching summer, but once I get back, my plan is to get a bunch of games in with these guys. And I do want to try some proxying, kind of mono or close to mono, and then some putting them in pairs, and then seeing, do I want to do anything more than a pair? Like, again, a one-off monster or one-off thing, cool. But do I feel I actually ever want a character in 3 different ones? Or 4, but I haven't run 4 casting characters in a while. I used to run 2 Rajas, a Sorcerer and a Maharaj. Although with their points total now, Sorcerer being cheaper at 90, I could see spamming them a little bit to up those numbers. But do you ever actually want to run 3? Or a character out of each? So that's the kind of stuff I want to play around with. All right, this has gone on for long enough, and I told random stories, and I have other random stories. For anyone, if you ever in my classes, I do very much the same sort of thing. I try to keep it on topic and talk about things, but near the end, I'll tell them random stuff like why we drive on the particular side of the road that we do, or why in Europe they do the other side, or why we don't use the metric system and stuff like that. So I enjoy a good story. All right, I'm going to stop telling you random stories for now. All right, on behalf of everyone here at the show, then, has a good hobbying. It's a great gaming.